For a while I had no idea what to make my senior presentation about, mostly because high school was kind of a blur. It was a lot of listening to people talk while I just sat there thinking about something else, or just not thinking at all, if I'm being real. I think they were trying to teach us how to do our taxes at some point, you know, something that doesn't apply to me, and never will. So you could probably imagine how hard it was to take a life lesson away from that. But towards the end of senior year, when everything was said and done and I can take my experiences and put everything together, I finally learned something. And that was fear. Let me explain. I'm pretty carefree when it comes to most things in life. You know, I'm perfectly happy with coasting by and just letting things wash over me, good or bad. You know, there could be an exam coming up and, you know, don't get me wrong, I'll study because I want to do well. You know, I'll do most of the study guide and make sure I understand how to do the formula for a specific problem. As long as I have a general gist of what I have to do, I'm pretty confident going into tests. And now that might have worked in like middle school, or even high school. But then I went to one of my college calc midterms. And you know, I thought I did pretty well, you know, even if I had to skip a problem or two. And when I got it back, after 2 or 3 days, it was like a 50. Like, I completely failed. This happened multiple times, across multiple U classes. Like, I'm surprised I passed any of them at all. And every single time, I would hear a deep sigh coming from one of the smartest people in class who had been stressing about this test for like the longest. And I would tune in into what they were saying. And it was always something like, damn, dude, I only got a 96. Like, are you for real? Like, are you serious? And then I'd sit there and ponder, how could you have this high of a standard when you study for as long as you do and get that high of grades on average? Like, why are you ever worried about tests? But now that I'm comparing myself to them, I know what they have that I don't. It's that fear that keeps them from relaxing and them studying more than they need to. Some might say that's like an unhealthy way to live. But that anxiety is what's been keeping us alive for centuries. Back in the Stone Age, when early man was smacking around rocks and sticks, our survival depended on how alert and on guard we were at all times. Sure, the Neanderthal who lounges around taking in the majesty of nature might be more chilled out and in a better headspace, but that's not going to save him from the man-eating tiger that snuck up on him while he was sleeping. The ones who survived back then were the anxious, paranoid cavemen who were ready for anything. Like, sure, they were probably more on edge than they were happy and frolicking through life, but they ended up living that life in the first place. Those smart people who are always stressed out about studying, they're the ones who are equipped to survive in the hostile environment of college calc. And I'm the Neanderthal getting dragged away and eaten. You know, at one point, I was failing my Calc 1 class, and the only thing that would save my grade was doing really well in the final. So I locked in. I spent days studying, making sure I knew every little detail of what could be on that exam. I was cramming, I was sweating, I was like hyperventilating the whole time. But after I took that final and the dust settled, you know, I did really well, and I ended up barely passing the class. So going into Calc 2, I made sure to study everything so I didn't end up at the same spot as last year. And, you know, for once, my midterms were looking pretty good. So for the final, you know, I knew that I could relax. You know, I did so well, and I basically mastered all the materials, so I didn't have to do that much. I had to do like half the study guide. You know, everything else was like review for something I already understood. So I go into the exam. I got my notes ready. I'm feeling pretty good. You know, days later, I get my score back. And it's a D. I got 120 out of 200. Like, I almost didn't pass the class. Again. Because I just wanted to relax. So what's the moral? What have I learned from high school? Fear. Be afraid at all times. Never rest. Never let your guard down. Whenever you hear that nagging voice in your head saying that you're good enough and that you've tried your hardest, always reassure yourself that you're not, and you haven't. Don't build yourself up. Always imagine yourself at the bottom of whatever you're trying to do. So there's no choice but to keep building. Because in your mind, you're garbage. Thinking you're failing on the inside will lead you to succeeding on the outside. At least that's what I learned from high school. Besides that, I reached Plat in Overwatch. You know, hopefully I can get into Diamond within the next 5 years.